What I love about color psychology is it allows me to bring this level of objectivity to something that is so subjective. And it allows me to really dig into, well, what does my client mean? You know, effective has a feeling, and there is a way of translating effective through to colors and shapes and fonts. Same with feminine, same with bespoke.
Hello, entrepreneurs, designers, digital nomads, and business gurus. Welcome to Circle Live, our internet talk show just for Squarespace Circle members. I'm Sam Z, your Senior Community Events Manager.
And I'm Sarah G. I almost said Sam Z. I'm Sarah G, team lead for the Circle program team. And we have our colleague, Taylor L, managing the conversation in the chat. Last month, we talked to Cody Yunke of Ghost Plugins about how he built his highly successful brand of Squarespace plugins. You can watch the replay video anytime from the link that we're sharing now.
And today we're joined by Fiona Humberstone, the brand stylist. Coming up, we'll share our interview with Fiona. We'll also have her joining us live for an audience Q&A. But to start us off with some fun news, let's go back to another thrilling edition of Release Notes Live. Each week, our Release Notes email goes out to Circle members with information about all the product and community updates they need to run successful Squarespace businesses. And in every episode of Circle Live, we dig deep into one of the items for recent Release Notes. Today's product deep dive is a much requested update to portfolios given by Circle friend Guillermo Suarez-Zara.
Hello, Circle. I'm Guillermo Suarez-Zara, Senior Product Manager, here with a brief deep dive on portfolio drafts. Portfolio drafts are going to help keep you organized and productive. We're excited to bring this feature to you, and I'm going to show you how to start using it right away. I've got a beautiful portfolio website here, where, as you can see, I'm using a portfolio collection to organize my projects. Before this feature, anything in a portfolio collection had to be live on a website. Now, when you create a new portfolio item, you'll see that it comes in as a draft, which means that I can take my time editing it. I don't have to worry about my live site. I can just take my time, be sure it's ready, and then when it's ready, I can hit that publish button and publish it, or I can also schedule it for a future date. Now, this functionality might look familiar from using other collections like blogs and events. We've had this in other places in the platform, but we've never had it on portfolio collections until now. And just like in those other collections, you can also go to an individual project and set it back to a draft. So if I've got this collection and I want to make heavy revisions to it, or I want to disable it for a while, I can switch it back to a draft status. So portfolio items with drafts will now let you edit more safely without impacting your live site, and just really feel more confident that you're not breaking anything on the website that your visitors are seeing while you're updating your portfolio. And that's it. I hope you enjoyed this overview of portfolio drafts.
And for more product updates, Circle members can check out the forum news and announcements page at the link Taylor is sharing in the chat or in the show notes. And as always, watch your email for more release notes. Now, Sarah, I'm going to hand it over to you to take a moment.
Thanks, Sam. This is a segment that we call Circle Member Moments. Every month, we ask Circle Live viewers what their proudest moment was from the last month. Here are some of our favorite responses. Community leader Adebakola Ajao created a 30-page action plan for her business, complete with financial projections.
I project it's going to be very successful. Bridget B helped a client launch a site she'd been avoiding updating for 5 years.
Sometimes you just got to jump right in. Penny B designed a new website for a car wrecking yard that hadn't had an update in a really long time.
Throw it on the pile of business wins. Katie V says she helped a client launch a really fun coffee bean website where she sells her own roasted coffee online.
Sounds like Katie has been busy. Yikes. Alexandra D says, I was getting to the end of my project's waitlist and getting nervous about new projects not coming in. I'm now booked until mid-August, trusting in my own skills and all that. The more projects you do, the more people want to work with you.
That's compounding interest on trusting in yourself. Barbara M. celebrated 30 years in business for herself this year and billed her biggest month ever in 1 week.
Congrats, Barbara. And congrats to Linda L., who started a Squarespace online course in German with 5 people that she didn't know before and is now growing subscribers on her German Squarespace channel.
Herzlichen Glückwunsch. German speakers.
I'm glad you took that one.
I'm so sorry. And congratulations to all Circle members. If you have a business a business win you'd like to share, put it in the chat while we take a quick break.
Are you looking to monetize your content and earn more from your websites? Whether you're a content creator, entrepreneur, business owner, or publisher, Google AdSense helps you to earn money by displaying high-quality, relevant ads from trusted advertisers on your websites and content. You can customize where and who sees the ads you want to display, while AdSense provides formats tailored to your needs and content, whether you're an online store, content-based site, or gaming site. Only the highest paying ads will be published on your sites, and you can boost your revenue by tapping into a large network of online advertisers who bid for your ad space. You can also simplify ad placement with high-level controls, or personalize settings to suit your specific requirements, like excluded areas and ad categories that you'd like to block. Creating great content takes time. Making it profitable shouldn't. To sign up for Google AdSense, visit the link goo.gle/Circle Live.
Welcome back. Thank you for sharing all of your wins with us. It's great to see all the work you're doing for your businesses and for each other. Before we get into the main interview, we have another special announcement to make. Last year, we launched our web designer course for beginning web designers. Since then, 785 students have completed Chapter 1. Really great to see. We just launched Chapter 2, so it's a perfect time to remind yourself that you're never too late to learn from the best.
Whether you're dreaming of starting your own business freelancing or expanding your skills, now's a great time to become a web designer. Our How to Become a Web Designer course will teach you everything you need to know with top tips from Squarespace Circle members, pros who have built successful careers using Squarespace. Each lesson is packed with actionable advice, proven strategies, and assignments designed to deepen your knowledge of the Squarespace platform and its most popular features. Whether you're just starting out or you're looking to level up, you'll be guided by experts from Squarespace's premier partner program, Circle members who know what it takes to succeed. With practical tips and hands-on learning, you'll build the skills you need to create stunning websites for clients in no time. We can't wait to see what you create.
Okay, now let's get to our main interview. Fiona Humberstone is the founder of The Brand Stylist, a consultancy, an online school, and a community for ambitious entrepreneurs who want to build brands with style. Fiona is also the author of the book, How to Style Your Brand, Everything You Need to Know to Create a Distinctive Brand Identity, which is celebrating its 10th publication anniversary this year. Last week, Sarah and I got to interview Fiona about colors, shapes, and everything branding. Let's watch. We know that so much of creative work is getting it right. There's the drafting process. There's the going back and forth with feedback. One of the things I'm impressed with your work, though, is you actually teach your students that you want to get them to a place where their briefs are signed off in the first meeting. Basically, you get to the first meeting, the client signs off immediately. A key to that you've said is resonance. How do you get to that resonance, and what are the elements that students need to be watching for in the brief to get there?
Yeah, it's all about resonance. What if we could get rid of that whole back and forth? So the back and forth for me happens before we present it to the client. And as you say, to get to that point, we have to have resonance. Resonance for me is a feeling in my body of what this brand needs to feel like in order for it to meet its commercial objectives. And if you can create something that is beautiful and meets the commercial objectives, the client just inevitably wants to sign it off. Like, they are not here to want to make your life difficult. They're not here, when they sign up for a rebrand or a new brand, their ultimate goal is to have something that they are really proud of, they feel really deeply personally connected to, and they feel really confident is going to help them achieve their business objectives. And I think when you're in the thick of brand design, it can feel like, oh, their objectives are that they want as many rounds out of me as possible, and they want to really get stuck in. They actually don't. They've got more interesting things to do from their perspective than the design. So if we can get to that point of resonance, then we can create this sense of confidence. Lots of entrepreneurs don't do the work up front that it takes to work out what will work for them commercially. So it's really important that they understand where they want to take their business, what sets them apart, who they want to be working with, and what impact they want their brand to create. And from there, as a designer, you need clarity. So you need to really distill that down into a clear brief. So you as the designer, you've got to understand, what is this business? What's its space? Where are we pitching this brand? And how does it need to come across to work for the brand commercially? And then also, what of the entrepreneur am I going to bring into this? And that's much more nuanced. But how do I create this connection so that this doesn't just function, it feels really good for the entrepreneur?
You just said they don't want to go back and forth because they have a lot of other things to work on, and branding is just one of them. I'm curious, from your perspective as the business owner, how you felt like streamlining that for your clients has actually helped you.
The more confident we are in our ability, the more we're able to push our creative boundaries, the stronger our portfolio becomes, the more attractive we are, the more we want to talk about our work, the more recommendable we are. It's this lovely kind of virtuous circle. If you contrast that with projects that drag on and on and on, it's not fun for the client. It's not great for the relationship. Everybody just wants it to go away at the end. Nobody wants to talk about it. Nobody wants more clients like that. Nobody feels good about it. You generally feel like a bit of a creative failure. Do you then feel like getting up tomorrow and starting on the next job? No. So I think we really underestimate the importance of flow and creative confidence in our work. And if we can maintain that state of flow and that strong sense of creative confidence, it makes our work better, but it makes our business much more efficient and, crucially, much more recommendable.
You teach a lot about color theory. What are if you'd be willing to share, some of the basics of color psychology and some tips for the uninitiated?
Branding is so subjective. And that's the thing that tied me up in knots when I started doing this. And what I love about color psychology is it allows me to bring this level of objectivity to something that is so subjective. And it allows me to really dig into, well, what does my client mean? Effective has a feeling, and there is a way of translating effective through to colors and shapes and fonts. Same with feminine, same with bespoke. So I wonder if it's helpful if I just explain a bit more about the seasonal personalities and how that fits into color psychology.
Please.
Yeah. Okay. So this color psychology method that I use is, it was developed by a lady called Angela Wright in the 1970s. Her parents had a hotel, and she was in the Lake District in the north of England, where we have very pronounced seasons. If you think about what the energy is in each season, if we think about spring, we've come out of a long, hard winter, and you get those in New York, don't you? Spring is full of hope, it's full of promise, it's full of possibility, it's full of creativity. And if you look at what's going on outside, things are little. So you have little ditsy blossoms, you have these incredible, you think about from over here, it's March to May. And, those tiny, tiny seedlings that pop out of the ground in March, by May, they are fairly well-grown plants. So the speed, the energy that's happening in that spring period is huge. So there is a real sense of energy forwards. It's all about clarity. Things are not busy in spring. Everything's fairly clean, but also it's quite soft. As we head into summer, this is the thing. Summer is the one that people find really difficult to get their heads around. It's a really sunny day here in England. And people tend to think of summer as being bright and uplifting and kind of full of energy. But actually, what happens in nature is everything slows down. It becomes much more refined, much more gentle, much more romantic. So in the countryside here, things become more billowing. The plants are more like spires. You get drifts of flowers rather than, poppy tulips. And the sun bleaches the flowers. So they might start out bright, but actually they have the kind of faded quality to them. So the summer season is the default for me for quality. So that means in terms of branding shapes, flowy lines, there's a formality to the feeling of summer. So serif fonts, whereas spring is all clean and bouncy and fun, and sans serifs. Summer would be more serif, maybe flowy calligraphy or script fonts. Autumn, I think we can all engage with that lovely back to school, very strong season of purpose and justice and warmth and soul, and there's a robustness. So that tiny, tiny amaranthus seedling that was, so skinny that you couldn't even hardly see it, is suddenly this 6-foot statuesque chunky plant with big leaves and, robust seeds going on. It's a season of abundance and generosity. So the colours have a warmth and an intensity to them. Fonts will have a substance to them. So a slab serif, maybe a handwriting font with a bit of oomph to it. And then winter is dramatic. It's extreme. So it might be ultra minimalist. It might be ultra maximalist. It might be ultra luxury and opulent. It might be super low frills. It's kind of all of the things. If you think about what's happening in nature, it's strong and it's clean and it's uncompromising. So what you can do is you can kind of map over those words that your client is using to, and there's a bit more of a process to it than that, but map over those words to kind of go, okay, so if my client wants her brand to feel really exacting, for example, well, that feels like a winter word. So we're probably going to use winter brand elements to communicate that. And it works subconsciously. It's really clever.
So And this is also just fascinating to hear you talk about this. I can totally see you in a room with a client and hearing you talk about this for hours, and also hearing you intelligently connect it to their brand. That is immediate value. I'm definitely getting what I'm paid for if I've hired you as my brand stylist. I want to note what you said about the words, because I happen to know, and maybe people watching this won't, that the words that you're talking about is not just something you added in to pepper up what you were saying. That actually is a part of your process. And I want you to talk a little bit more about that. You use 3 words that allow the client to become part of the process. What are those 3 words? Talk a little bit more about how they connect to the seasons and maybe give some examples.
I go through a big exploratory process with my client where I'm really just listening, and I'm very passionate that that is not in the form of a questionnaire. You cannot build resonance via a questionnaire. You cannot build rapport with a client through a questionnaire. And you cannot do this through AI. This is about feelings, and it's about emotions, and it's about engaging with your body. So you will not get this from chucking your clients' responses into ChatGPT. It's got to be something that you work through and you really explore with them. So one of the challenges, I think, if you take a questionnaire, you run it through ChatGPT, what's the most common themes that are coming up? Well, you guys might have used a word often, but that might not be the most important thing. So I'm looking for cues in what you tell me, how you say something, what makes you light up, and I'll get you to explore that more. So we'll go on this whole exploratory thing, and I'll be trying to get a sense of where does this brand fit into the market? What is it about this that Sam is really passionate about? Or Sarah's really passionate about. I need to get that sense of you and how you fit with this business. And that's not a one size fits all. Some of you will want to be like almost integral to your brand, and others will want nothing to do with it. So that, it's like, is it 95 manifestation of Sam, or is it 5%? Where is it on that spectrum? So there's lots of exploring, there's lots of understanding. I will develop a whole strategy, and I will then boil it down literally to the brand's essence. And 3 words that describe the essence of the brand, which I see it as literally, if all these words were in a stock, we boiled it down to a little, gel. What would those 3 words be? What are the most important things? And those 3 words really need to capture the nuance of the brand. And this is the piece that you can do it at a surface level. But if you do it at a surface level, you're not going to hit on the resonance. And if you don't hit on the resonance, you're going to go off down the track. So this essence piece is really fundamental. And then the feeling. So if that's the essence, if that's what this business is, and we know that this is who it needs to connect with, and this is where we're sort of headed in the market, and this is what's important, and these are maybe the things that got in the way in the past, or these are the competition, lots of factors. How does this brand need to feel? And that ultimately is all that matters as I move forwards, but you can't do it without that really solid foundation.
In your book, you talk about color psychology being a secret weapon, meaning that it's something that you can use to communicate more effectively, but also, I imagine, push back on a client. I'm curious if you have any examples of using color psychology, some of the stuff you talked about before, to push back on a client.
So I guess the pushback I would do now, these days, would be around the brief. You want your brand to feel really high end and approachable, or, you want it to feel, I mean, there's not many things that absolutely don't work, but some things you're just like, I don't think it can be both. And color psychology gives me the framework to know that that isn't me being a bad designer or strategist. That just doesn't make sense. Or it helps me work out, well, this brief is really all over the shop. We've got to focus in more. When I first started using color psychology, when my process wasn't as refined as it is now, in the design agency days, I would use it to, if a client came back on a design and they said, can we make it a bit softer or a bit pinker or something? And I would be able to say, well, you wanted to look high end or you wanted to look bespoke, and this is why we've done this. I do feel now that if your design is really resonant, there isn't really any pushback to do because you've done that pre-thinking for them. I also don't love that pushback dynamic because I think you're creating something really special for a client's business. And that doesn't mean you should be at their beck and call and you should kind of be a Mac monkey just executing what they can't. We've got AI to do that now. But I do think that I think we're doing ourselves as designers a big disservice if we go into it expecting this to be a conflict and expecting it to be a bit of a nightmare.
Can you tell when a brand has been made by AI?
We've all become really disconnected to what sets us apart. And that, in the design sphere can manifest as, let me just create a portfolio that looks on trend and let me get more work. And lo and behold, no one's investing properly because it doesn't look any different to anyone else's. Whereas if we connect back to what it is that makes us innately, uniquely brilliant, and we can distill that down, the clarity, the confidence, the vision, the momentum that's created is huge. And that's before you've even done anything visual. So that it's about those internal shifts that happen and those almost that alchemy that happens in your body that galvanizes you to move forwards. I haven't seen that is remotely possible with AI.
I feel like what AI can give you feels kind of parallel to what you said at the beginning of our conversation, which was I wouldn't just send someone a questionnaire, because in both situations you're what helps you get to a brand that feels resonant is the emotional connection with your client. AI literally has no emotion, so it can't do that. But likewise, just reading answers off a page is not going to give you the human connection, the human insight and into their answers. So that you're very consistent. I have oh yeah, please.
There's a bit of a woo-woo element to this as well, isn't there, where the energy that is behind, whether that's an email that goes out, whether that's how you feel about your brand, the energy that's created is so important. And that, to answer your point earlier, Sam, about the client experience, if the client feels amazing about the brand because it was a seamless, joyful, life-affirming process where someone reflected back to them, you are the nuts, and here's how I see you, versus this slog of, oh God, are we going to get there? This is painful on all sides. Shall we just sign it off because it's becoming untenable or you're getting annoying? That energy that's behind that really matters.
Fiona, thank you for answering our questionnaire today. Fortunately, we were able to ask it to you face-to-face rather than having you fill out an online form. So slightly more personal that way. It's been a pleasure hearing you talk about this stuff and working through your process with us. And I just want to thank you for sharing your wisdom with us.
Oh, thank you for asking me.
Absolutely. In a moment. Well, that was just so great. I need to say that was just that's a really great interview and
good.
so much fun. She's so animated too,
Yeah.
with great hand gestures and just it's a pleasure to watch her think.
I can see why we don't boil it down to a questionnaire.
But we
So
need the
human.
full person here. Speaking of which, we will have Fiona here in just a moment for a live Q&A, and we will be right back after this message.
Many content creators and website owners experience inappropriate and off-brand ads appearing on their site. With Google AdSense, they can better manage their ads themselves and have more control over the type of ads that appear next to their content. For example, a vegan blog can block all adverts for meat products and instead place complimentary adverts on their site. AdSense allows content creators to customize the placement, amount, and layout of ads on their website, which is really important as there is often a lot going on their pages to begin with. With the automation feature, content creators can be hands-off while trusting that the ads being shown are not only making them money, but are actually useful to their audience. To learn more, visit the link goo.gle/circle live.
We are back, and we have our special guest with us here live. Hi, Fiona.
Hello. How are you?
Oh, so great, so great. How are you doing? How is that watching yourself on screen?
Yes, I know. Thank you. It's alarming watching yourself back, but
it is. But you're such a natural. I really love watching you think using your hands. I mean, it makes sense that you were talking about how important your branding work is in getting in your body because you look just very comfortable on screen.
I know you could literally see the cogs going, couldn't you, when I covered the questions?
Such a delight to talk with you. Viewers, keep those questions coming for our guest. And for now, Sarah, I think we have a few questions in the chat.
We have a lot of questions in the chat, so we can dive into it. All right, Fiona, first question from Maison. What colors and fonts are trendy today? Does it differ in different locations? This question asker is located in Eastern Europe at the moment.
Okay, so Maison Solutions, you probably won't be surprised having got to the end of this conversation because you asked that right at the beginning, that I don't follow trends. I am interested in creating brands for entrepreneurs that are going to last them a good decade. And I want these brands to look beautiful and also to work for them commercially. And for a brand to work commercially, it has to put you in the brand identity doesn't, but you have to find a space in the market that only your client can own. And then your brand identity's job is to allow them to own that space so that people subconsciously get it. So, the truth is, if we're all using trending fonts and trending colors, then we're not standing out. What I do think your question speaks to that's really important is that we don't develop a brand today using things that are dated. So, there is that piece around it shouldn't be dated. And I don't want to make sweeping statements. It's really funny because 25 years on from starting out in design, I'm finding myself using fonts again, like Fritz Quadrature that we were using in the early noughties. So things come back around.
Love that. All right, we're going to keep things moving. Question from Leon. What are the best websites to pick color palettes?
Similar answer in that I don't use websites to pick color palettes. I have a process. I have a course that teaches you how to create resonant brands. And in that course, I teach you how to create color palettes. And there's something very powerful about doing this by hand. And then once you've got your eye in, you can totally use colors. You can totally do this digitally. But I think people find it very difficult to create cohesive palettes. And for me, what's really important is that we are creating resonance and we are aligning that palette with the client space in the market and the vision. So, again, probably not going to go to a website.
Can I ask though, and not to ask you to give up all of your secrets here, but do you use any? What do you use to come up with a color palette? Are they physical tools? Are they the markers? Are they pencils?
Yeah, I
What do
mean,
you use?
there's loads of ways you can do it. You can use Pantone chips, although that's become annoying because they've stopped integrating with Adobe. You can use paint chips, but just having them physically in the same light and being able to kind of walk away, come back is really powerful.
And do you find if you're using a physical Pantone chip, are you then finding some way to make that digital again to put that into a presentation?
Yeah,
So
you can
great.
digitize it. Yeah.
Awesome. All right. Question from Miko. What do you do when your client's taste in color is not aligned with what is appropriate for their target audience?
I think this was one of the questions that got cut, actually. I don't ask my clients what they want their brand to look like. So I have two encouragements here. One is as a brand or a website designer, if you want clients who continually bring you joy, you need to curate and edit your portfolio down to the work that you love and that you want more of. And when you are in that space, my experience is you probably will get less of those clients that you're like, oh. Secondly, you need a robust process, which again, you may well have, no judgment. But yeah, I am interested in, the client that for me, the most rewarding clients to work with are the ones who trust me creatively. And to do that, obviously I need a robust process, and there are lots of other markers that need to be in place for that to happen. But I suppose the short answer is I would want to explore that commercially, and I probably wouldn't have asked them what their taste in color was in the first place.
Good. Keep it streamlined. All right. Question from Anna. What is the one question that helps you situate the brand into a season?
Oh, if it was only one question. It's a deep process. And, that process. So I first learned about color psychology in 2008. And somebody else has asked further down the chat, what was the name of the lady I mentioned? So the lady I mentioned is Angela Wright, and she's she developed this color theory. What I have then done since 2008 is gone on to develop that for branding in quite a specialist way. So it's now no longer just about the colors and the textures, but actually about how to use that to create a really powerful strategy and communicate at a commercial level. So to go back to remind me. Oh yeah. So about one question. There isn't one question. There's a whole robust process. And there are two things. To be able to execute this well, you have to have an insane level of detail in color psychology, far more than you're going to find online or in a book. And you also need to be able to replicate this across multiple clients. It's very, I teach this stuff to entrepreneurs, and that's one thing because the entrepreneur is making their own decision. It's very different when you're charging a client for this stuff and you have to repeat it across multiple industries. So I'm sorry, there isn't one question.
I think it's helpful to know, it's a whole process. It's something to be learned. All right. Aaron says, for existing brands, when/how might you know that what they need isn't a rebrand or a brand refresh, but their issue is more that they aren't executing against the existing strategy?
So this is like a perennial issue, isn't it, for designers? You create something really beautiful, and then the client doesn't have the design skills to execute it. I mean, I guess, how would you know? I guess you would look. And how do you see this question, Sarah? Like what? Because I feel a little bit like the answer is in the question. I don't know if Erin's added anything at the end.
Not that I can see. You know, I guess that begs the question, like, what are you, when your client comes to you, what are you asking that is already in their toolkit versus just like being like, great, let me go and build something for you. And I feel like some of that discovery work you've talked about of being like, let me understand what you have. And maybe it's the case that they have something, but they don't know how to utilize it.
Yes.
And the work to be done is helping them utilize it instead of starting from scratch.
Yeah. So I guess there's a few things, isn't there? There's people don't tend to come to me unless they want a rebrand or they're launching something new. And yeah, there are definitely times when I'll say to them, I don't think we need to touch your logo, or I don't think we need to touch your color palette, but your photography is really not doing any favors. Or actually, all the elements of your brand identity are beautiful, but your website is not looking so great. So let's work on that. In terms of then, is that fitting against the existing strategy? Yeah, that if it's not working again, if it's not been executed against the strategy, generally it's because they didn't have one in the first place. I also see a lot of disjointedness between let's get a brand strategy because someone's telling me to get a brand strategy, and then they're working with someone that doesn't have the skills to execute that strategy. And I guess that's sort of what I'm getting at with the there isn't one question. This is to create genuinely strategic work. There is some learning and some research that has to take place. You know, you wouldn't have someone come in and rewire your house that had that had taught themselves how to do it. And I think I am all here really genuinely for the self-taughtness. And I also see that when you want to get to the next level, there is, you know, there's a level of insight that will take you there.
Do we have time to keep going?
Yeah.
Okay. We answered Megan's question. All right. Annalisa says, are there any telltale cues that you pick up from a client during the first meeting that you use as you move forward in the design process? I think you talked about this a little bit in terms of like the words and the vibe you get from them, and that's why you do it face to face.
Yeah, but also I pick up on so many things. So I'm not trained in personal color theory. But as I was talking you two through it, I was getting such strong cues from the shirt that Sam was wearing with the thick cord, you know, and the colors that it, you know, it had very intense colors, and his coloring, his hair, his eyes, the way he speaks. So I'll definitely use all of that against that backdrop of what he's telling me commercially that he wants. But it's really important. That's part of the process of thinking, how do I create something that is not just going to work commercially for Sam's business, but is actually going to connect with him personally?
Desperate to find out what
I can't wait for the full report. I'm gonna wait my email for that.
Rachel says, how do you find and discover fonts to work with? Do you search by keywords online, or how do you go about finding your fonts?
That's such a good question. So one of the best tools I have found is What the Font, which I'm sure lots of you use. I use a visioning process, which again, I'm sure lots of you do. And if there's a font that I love, I try not to use mood boards as an order form, but if there's a font that I love, I will put it into What the Font and at least get a starting point on what that is, so I can then springboard off. I personally try and avoid the very kind of gimmicky fonts that maybe come in and out, you know, the very trendy stuff like the creative market stuff. I'm looking for something a lot more timeless generally.
Question from Ariana. What do you see as the intersection between minimalism, which is obviously like a timeless design trend, but is, I think, often associated with like black and white? What do you see as the intersection between that and then color?
Well, I would be thinking of it from so I would be thinking of that as like a feeling word for someone's brand. So I would be thinking, well, that's definitely winter. That's quite uncompromising. It's black springs to mind, like black and white or monochrome in some form. These words, they all have feelings and associations around them, don't they?
They certainly do.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna unfortunately have to wrap this conversation up, but the feelings, words, and associations that you've given us today, Fiona,
So good with the
have
puns.
been fantastic. Fantastic. Though that wasn't one of my best ones. Please don't give that too much credit. No, it is so you're such a delight to talk to. We could talk to you for another 4 hours, I think,
Oh,
and
it's
learn
hot
so much
even in
more.
this room, as you can see now.
I know, and you
Melted.
need to drink some water. It's hydration is important. Fiona, it's so great to get to talk to you, to get to know you through the process of developing this interview. We need to have you back on Circle Live sometime.
Oh, I'd love that. Thank you. Thank you for asking me.
Thanks, Fiona.
Thanks for joining us today.
You.
We'll see you soon. Wow, what a cool person.
So cool.
That's all for today's show. Thank you for joining us live. We will be back with Circle Live next month.
And don't forget, Circle Day is only a few months away. We'll be announcing the programming schedule soon, but you can sign up now to attend online for free at circleday.squarespace.com.
Until next Circle Live, this is Sam Z.
And I'm Sarah G.
Reminding you, Sticky Nav stays with you.
Bye, everybody.